Exercise 3Z, Consolidating Data Review. The estimated time for this task is about 15 minutes. Transform the data from file 3Z and summarize the total sales and margin by month. The total sales will be a dollar value, but I also want the total margin to be a dollar value. At the moment, you have a sales figure and a margin figure for each manager, so you'll have to use some mathematical functions to calculate margin dollars. Once you've finished, you should end up with a table like this. I also want you to group the rows by month. This video contains clues for exercise 3Z. Clue number 1. You may need to use the add column multiply function. Secondly, if you want to make this exercise harder, try doing all the multiplication and addition steps in one step using a custom column and the formula editor. Let's take a look at exercise 3Z. From the Home tab, create a new query from an Excel file and select file 3Z. We're interested in the daily manager sales and margin table. To create a total sales column, simply select the three manager sales columns, press Add Column, go to the standard mathematical functions and press Add. We can rename that column Total Sales. We can use a similar method to calculate the margin dollars earned by each manager. So select Manager 1 Sales and Manager 1 Margin using the Control key. This time we're going to add another column, but the function we're going to use is multiply. This column is now Manager 1 Margin Dollars. Let's just call it 1MD for short. Let's do the same thing for Manager 2. Sales times margin. And multiply. Rename it to MD. Finally, Manager 3 Sales times Manager 3 Margin. Multiply. 3MD. So now we can calculate total margin dollars by selecting those three columns and pressing Add. This is now total margin. We've used 8 steps here to calculate the total margin column. We can do this all in one step if we want. Add a custom column. Let's call this Total Margin Quick method. So I can use this formula editor to write any formula combination of the other columns. So let's do Manager 1 Sales. Double-clicking on it, we see it in those square brackets. We want to multiply that using the star icon by Manager 1 Margin. Double-click. Then we want to add Manager 2 Sales multiplied by Manager 2 Margin. And finally, we want to add Manager 3 Sales multiplied by Manager 3 Margin. The editor looks good, we have no syntax errors. So let's press OK, and there you see we've achieved the same result in one step instead of 8. We don't need both of these columns, so I'm going to remove that last one. Now that we've calculated total sales and total margin, I can get rid of those more detailed columns from the Home tab using Remove Columns. And finally the same thing with the Manager Sales. We also want to aggregate these transactions by month. So first let's click on that transaction date, go to Transform, and we'll use a date function to identify the first date of each month, so start of month. Now again in the Transform tab, we can use the Group By function to group by transaction date. This time we need to create two new columns, one for sales and one for margin. They're both going to be aggregated by month. To do this, we have to enable the advanced group by. This gives us the option not only to add a new aggregation column, which we need here, but also to add a second grouping. For example, if you wanted to see group by month and company, or month and category. So in this case, let's create the new column called total sales, and it will be a sum of the total sales column. Secondly, the total margin column will also be a sum, and this time of the current margin column. I'm happy with that. Press OK. So finally, let's rename this query to Power Query Exercise 3Z Chapter Review. These Power Query challenges are a great way to test your knowledge of this incredible tool. To learn more tips and tricks that save you hours of time, check out our Power Query Fundamentals course, where you can learn all the most widely used functionality using applied, real-world scenarios.